I'm fine.
Yeah.
That's right. We're being equal opportunity.
We try to strategize how we can fly, get a little harder.
That's what we want to hear about.
Right here, sir.
Yeah, and I assumed Warner was going to reach out to us. Okay. Well, and again, for them, the JPA is the word that they're going to make sure it's supposed to. But I can talk to Warner. I was expecting him to reach out, but I can drop it. Wait for him. Will do. All going well? You're going to do that?
Good morning. Sorry for the delay, and sorry that we're still in this room where we're so far away from all of you. It's not our favorite mode, but I don't even know what are they doing in the other room?
They're revamping it.
Right, they are. Look inside, it's torn apart.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I saw the equipment, but then I turned around. Go in and try the chairs.
They're looking at chairs like that. So I sent you guys all.
Yeah, I did, and I asked where that room was, but that's a whole nother story. But, yeah, all I know is I don't want these chairs, because I have to perch on the end of them to be able to do it. Okay, well, with that really scintillating opening, good morning, all. I'm Felicia Marcus, Chair of the State Water Board. Today is Tuesday, February 17th, 2015 at 9:10. Meeting is called to order. To my left is Vice Chair Fran Spivey Weber. To her left, Board Member Didi Diadamo. To my right, Board Member Ken Dodek. And perhaps he's on vacation. We will not have Board Member Stephen Moore. Mr. Howard, will you introduce the staff that are helping us today?
Thank you. To my right, Chief Deputy John Bishop. To my left, Michael Lawfer, Chief Counsel. Assisting the board today are Janine Townsend and Courtney Davis.
Thank you very much. Emergency evacuation procedure. For those who aren't familiar with it, look for the nearest exit to you. If you hear an emergency sound, pick up your stuff, take your friends, and proceed in an orderly fashion and safely out of the building. We regroup near the corner of J and 10th Street if you want to know when the all clear sounds to come back in. Important to remember that the meeting is being webcast and recorded, so it's very important, two things, that you put your pagers or, do people still have pagers? No. On stun, I'm dating myself, and so that they don't make noise, and also when you come up to the microphone, please speak directly into it so that not only we, but the entire room and people watching over the webcast can hear you. We're on to the public forum, and this is where we hear from any person who wants to speak about something that is not on the agenda. We have 2 cards as of now, and each person gets 3 minutes. First, Ms. Kincaid from the San Joaquin Trib. 5 minutes? 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Thank you. Valerie Kincaid from the San Joaquin Tributaries Authority. The San Joaquin Tributaries Authority filed comments and a specific request in response to the informational order issued by the board on February 4th of this year. And I'm here to follow up on that request to amend the informational report and also take any questions from the board if you have them on our comments. But mostly try to get a sense from the board if you were going to act upon the request to amend or if there would be no board action.
I'm going to turn to Mr. Lawfer.
So I'll, first of all, just in case it gets rather loud, this is missing a cover. But we did receive the request. Staff is evaluating it. At this point in time, we're not sure whether it will be handled via a potential amendment at the executive director level or whether the entire board will hear it. We actually received multiple requests, at least one of which would be styled potentially as a petition for reconsideration. So we're in the evaluation process, and we recognize the urgent nature of getting that information in and dealing with the challenges that have been received. So I expect Ms. Kincaid and her clients will hear from us in pretty short order.
Like this week? Will you be briefing all of us on all of those?
All the board members will be receiving the requests, and we can certainly make offers to provide briefings on what the various arguments that have been raised and how staff proposes to handle it. Obviously, if the board is interested in hearing it, that's something that we can schedule as appropriate as well.
All right. I know some of us have been copied on some of them, but not all of them, so it would be good to know. Did it make a difference? It does? Oh, that's right. You would notice that because you're the IT king. So.
But I'm sorry, since we have Ms. Kincaid here, could she succinctly highlight what some of the concerns were?
Sure. The concerns from the San Joaquin Tributaries Authority were that the complaints that the informational order was based on were not directed towards any of the SJTA members. So none of the complaints filed last year named the SJTA or upstream. They were focused on the Delta export issue. And I mean, in layman's terms, to be honest, we want to stay out of that dynamic, and we don't want that informational order to be mistaken or for us to be drugged in to that issue. And we want to make sure those lines are very clear about where the complaint is alleging problems and where it's not. We very much feel like the SJTA member agencies are in a place where they're not focused, and that's why we were concerned by the informational request. I do appreciate Mr. Lawford talking about the timing issue. The responses have to be due by I think it's March 6th, and that's coming up pretty quickly. So any action that could be taken quickly would be much appreciated by the SJTA.
Do you see a way we could resolve those complaints without looking at folks upstream? I don't see how we can.
Well, I think you could ask for information that the complaints, in the area that the complaints were based on. And to be clear, the SJTA is not opposed to providing information and disclosing information. If the State Water Board wants information from the SJTA agencies, we'd be more than happy, and as we did last year, we'd be more than happy to provide that. I don't want to say it's a technicality because it's really more than that, but really the issue is those complaints did not involve the SJTA member agencies or those areas, and we don't want to be kind of drug into an issue that we're not involved in currently. So if the information is requested in a different way, we'd be more than happy to present it. We kind of all just want to be sure we're playing by the rules, and we're more than happy to be transparent and disclose the information. That's not really the issue. Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Great. And next, Deirdre Desjardins, California Water Research, I think.
Yeah, California Water Research.
Great. Hi.
And you're one of the few people who pronounces my name right.
Oh, good.
Thank you. I have been studying water use in the Central Valley for 5 years, and I just wanted to urge the board to consider, you have broad powers to investigate waste and unreasonable use of water, and I believe the staff has argued that that also includes groundwater. But I believe there is a groundwater emergency developing in the Tulare Lake Basin. I looked into what was causing the wells in East Porterville to go dry, and what I found was that there were reports of wells going dry downslope in the Lower Tool Irrigation District earlier in the year. And we know that that's from satellite data from NASA, that that's a basin that has had a huge overdraft for years. And I was stunned when I looked at satellite maps of land fallowing in the San Joaquin Valley to find out that that's where the western Tulare Lake region is where most of the fallowed land is. So I think there is exhaustion of groundwater happening there. And while the farmers can just pick up and buy land someplace else, the communities are left behind with no groundwater and these areas that have no drought year water supply. So I think it's a very huge public trust issue, and while the groundwater legislation that was passed is a huge step forward, I'm not sure the Tulare Lake Basin can wait 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good point. All right. Thank you both for that. Minutes from the February 3rd board meeting. Do I have a motion?
I will move for adoption.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, minutes are approved. Then we have one uncontested item. Is it still uncontested, Mr. Howe? Right. Okay. Great. Do I have
I move adoption of the uncontested item with change sheet number 1 and change sheet number 2.
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it carries. That's interesting. This is the same Antelope Creek that we've been dealing with, or different? the same one? Yeah, that's kind of cool.
It is, the board approved some resources for that last year, but the project has been, had to change in nature, and so this just amends the project nature. It's not Anderson Creek, is that what you're thinking?
No, I was thinking antelope,
No.
mule, and deer.
No.
So. It's the same Antelope Creek.
Yes, yes.
Great, that's great. I like it when we're doing things to help make something happen versus just using our regulatory authority. That's great.
And if you would note, in the staff write-up for this item, they actually used the term multi-benefits or words to that effect.
Oh, good, that's even better. All right. Informational items, we have a number of very important ones today. First will be our drought update. That's right, yeah, pick your, oh yeah, no, this is like, oh yeah, and you can't really lean forward either. Hi.
So we have a fairly short update, so
Okay.
that's why we were thinking about going back there, but we're happy to be right up in front. So I'm Amanda Montgomery, the program manager. It is on. I can get it even closer to me. The program manager for water rights permitting and licensing, and also I have Kathy Maroka, the program manager for water rights enforcement. So on the permitting and licensing side, we have one urgency change that we approved since the last board meeting. That was the second renewal of the City of Santa Cruz urgency change.
Oh, okay.
So again, that urgency change reduces their fish releases from 1 CFS to 0.2 CFS. They do monitoring downstream to make sure there's no fisheries issues, and they haven't seen any. So they're continuing to move forward. That allows them to store more water in their Newell Creek reservoir, so they have more water for their city, and they're implementing conservation requirements.
They are, I had heard something that they had rolled back some of them
They
after
have.
the last set of rains, but they're still one of the high achievers in the state, as I recall, on the charts that we get every month.
That's definitely true, and they're still above 20% conservation compared to baseline conditions. So, but they have stepped back a little bit, but they're still in stage 3, so they can ramp back up depending on how conditions change.
Okay, great.
So we also have one urgency change that we're continuing to process. It's also a renewal. It's from June Lake Public Utility District in Mono County, and they're asking for a renewal of their 180-day urgency change. It again reduces fisheries flows, and they conducted monitoring during the last period, and they'd like to continue that reduction again. So we're in the process of looking at that renewal, and we plan to act on it within the next several weeks.
Great.
So that's all we have on the permitting side. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathy to talk about enforcement.
Yeah, and in the enforcement side, we have issued a letter last Friday, the notice of probable curtailment under Term 91. So it's not yet the curtailment item, but we like to give advance notification. We also like to be really cognizant of all the other efforts going on. And the dry year report indicated that we should be providing more information to the public on our web. So we've developed a graphic that we have posted. There's text to go with it. We're still working with the Water Master's Office and the projects on the text that will go with it, but we're confident that the graphic is a good product at this point, so that the public can follow along and see, you know, what's actually happening, rather than just giving a date certain and saying, well, May 5th we're going to curtail under Term 91. You get a lot better ability to see how basically rainstorms have happened, the situations changing or not changing. But we also wanted it to be simple with check boxes that the Term 91 is in effect, not in effect, delta condition is balanced or excess, so that if somebody looking at this who doesn't have a lot of technical background, they can just look at it, they get it. And then the text that we're currently under development, that will be more technical in nature, so that if you're a real savvy water user, you get a little more information. So, you know, basically something for everybody. That's what our goal is here. So this year we issued the notice of probable curtailment. We aren't going to use the graphic to institute curtailment. It'll reflect our official notice to parties on curtailment. So we would have to issue an official notice.
All right. That's helpful. Now explain this graph to me.
Okay.
Because you think this is easy to understand. I do not see legends that help me understand what it means.
Certainly. So on the one side, we have the flow numbers for the delta there. And then on the other axis, we have dates. So we're going to be doing weekly updates of this graphic. And it basically tells you the flow trends for the delta flow. We lifted our curtailment, 11/26/2014, on turn 91. The black dotted line is if you cross the dotted line, you're in term 91. So, if the delta condition is balanced, also the checkbox has to be balanced, and you cross the line, and then you're in term 91. So that means that the state and federal water projects are releasing stored water in order to maintain the delta in balanced conditions. And at that point, when the projects are releasing water, that water is not available for diversion by others. And that's why we issue our notice of curtailment at that point.
Am I the only one who doesn't think that's obvious looking at this? Maybe I am. It's not obvious to me at all. So tell me what the blue line really means.
It's the flows. So it's the water condition in the delta. Basically, we had big rainstorms that came in February 11th. So at that point, there was a lot of flow in the delta. We didn't have a problem with respect to whether reservoirs had to release water to maintain conditions. So basically,
this is like your exceedance charts. You guys can read them, but regular people can't.
That's
So
why
I'm
we
just
do the
trying to help.
checkboxes.
Whether it's just me or it's other people who are looking at this, it's not obvious to a layperson, including a water right holder who's not one of the big expert water right holders. So
Sure,
give it a
Marcus.
try, Barbara.
I can only see your foreheads from here.
I know. Well,
So
I'm
far
sitting.
down.
I'm like I could stand up.
I'm sorry, it feels a little odd. So what Kathy alluded to earlier was there'll be a text with this particular chart that will
would
lay
help.
it out. Because
Good.
it's not meant to be in itself an
Okay,
entire snapshot that is easily seen. Because as you know, the term 91 does have bells and whistles, and it's an elaborate equation that is worked to make these charts. And so the text that Kathy referred to will come with the term 91 curtailment graph so that people will be able to understand how it's been worked through.
Right, and so if I'm going to look at this, we're talking about natural delta flow. How do you see when they're releasing water? Will that look different?
When all the conditions of term 91 are met,
Yeah.
that is when the blue line goes up and crosses the black line. And so what it will explain is the equations that are used to understand that. But what it's meant to be a visual for is as the blue line approaches, as you can see, unless we got those storms that came in fairly recently, the blue line would be approaching the black. And it would give people advance notice then to know when curtailment might be happening if no more storms are coming in. And so we are just trying to give people a better planning tool so that they have the ability to know when it's approaching and aren't surprised then when they receive a letter in the mail from us.
I understand from conversations that I've had with the Water Master staff, this is not recent, probably about a year ago, that a lot of people that are subject to Term 91 frequently go online to track things. So is this a new chart? What have they been using in the past?
Okay, so what's available online is that the projects put out graphical information, so you have to really know where it's found on their websites, and you have to be able to read the text, it's not graphical, I'm sorry. It's an Excel spreadsheet. And so you can read the Excel spreadsheet at any time and know what's going on from those numbers. But we haven't seen a graphical representation like this previously. So we have always tried to maintain websites. The Water Master's been doing that the last year and a half or so to provide ongoing information to the public. But this is simply a new tool.
Yeah, so when they get close to that dash line, they know something's coming their way.
Right.
Could you provide links to those other sites that they already probably know about in
Yeah,
the
we can do so.
attachment
And
that
actually,
you have?
what we're trying to do with the projects is we're trying to determine, and it's a question of, computer system securities, things like that, if we can get a direct feed from the projects to update the graphics. So we're working on some additional bells and whistles right now, as soon as we can determine about computer security issues. So we're hoping to have even more.
Yeah, I'm just saying, that way they see that there's discussion going on with the entities that produce the information that they've been relying on in the past.
Absolutely.
Oh,
I think
good
that's
point.
a great idea. So, absolutely.
Great. If you want to use me as a guinea pig for that text, I'm volunteer.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. No? Yeah. Oh, good. Thanks very much. All right. Mr. Howard, will you please introduce item number 4?
Yes, a number of months ago, the board held a meeting and issued a resolution asking staff to come forward with recommendations to improve implementation and enforcement of water rights in future dry years. We've prepared a report based with recommendations on those improvements, and Michael Buckman and Barbara Evoy and David Rose will be here to discuss those.
Terrific. Mr. Buckman, you have special dispensation to leave pagers and cell phones on today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tom. Good morning, Chair Marcus and members of the board. My name is Michael Buckman. Got to get this really close. And I'm a senior environmental scientist with the Division of Water Rights. Tom already introduced my staff here with me. Oh, not Brian. Brian Coates with the enforcement section. He is a senior. We are here to present agenda item number 4, the 2015 dry year report. In its July 2nd, 2014 resolution number 2014-0031, the State Water Board described its intent to engage stakeholders in general assessment of information used to make water availability and water rights priority determinations, and to solicit suggestions for improvements. The board directed staff to cover the following topics and make recommendations in each of the 4 areas: the 1978 dry year report, the curtailment complaint process, and number 3, the quality of data in water rights database, and opportunities to expand and improve database capabilities. The board solicited public comments and met with stakeholders in various watersheds to discuss improvements that it should make to its implementation of the water rights priority system for future dry years. We received 36 letters and recommendations on a number of related topics, such as the temporary urgency change petitions, conservation and recycling, public trust, health and safety, and water transfers. Several sets of comments were also targeted to specific situations in specific watersheds. While these topics are generally outside the focus of this report, they are being evaluated and may be implemented as part of other activities by the board. For example, discussion of the emergency water conservation workshop follows this item. Tomorrow is a workshop on the Bureau and Department of Water Resources temporary urgency change petition. And the board is also scheduled to hold a workshop on the status of the Salton Sea on March 18th. The recommendations that we received will assist the board in making improvements to many activities of the board. Oh, now I broke it. Okay, it's back. Those tools are much less complicated. The first section of the report, which focused on the 1978 dry year program report, contained 4 main recommendations. The first recommendation is legislative changes to improve the administration of the water rights system, such as authority to issue cease and desist orders against illegal diverters while the water rights hearing process is conducted, and increase the frequency of reporting of diversions made under pre-1914 and riparian claims of right. The second recommendation is to standardize the methodology and procedures for determining water availability relative to the water rights priority system, which we described in section 2 of the report. The third recommendation is to provide forecast data to water right diverters if a shortage is anticipated. The division is posting water supply forecast data we receive on our webpage, as described in the drought informational item, just previous to this item, and notifying the public of forecasted shortages and potential curtailments.
The last recommendation in this section is to investigate and implement new technologies to assist in administering the water rights system. The division will be using new technologies such as aerial photography to improve investigations. It is also pursuing satellite photography and increased use of telemeter gauges to improve consumptive use data and enforcement. The second section of the report focused on curtailment and complaint process. The 6 major recommendations were: first, begin yearly water playing efforts as early as possible, which the division is currently doing. We have procedures and methodologies in place helping to expedite earlier demand and supply evaluations, and much of the efforts in 2014 have helped the division to prepare for quicker response in 2015 and future dry years. Second, improve coordination with other agencies. The division had extensive coordination with EWR and the Central Valley Water Board and the Department of Fish and Wildlife in 2014, and will continue to coordinate with those agencies and additional agencies as we move forward into 2015. Third, improve communication on by continuing to have frequent updates on drought conditions and board actions, as well as additional local outreach where feasible. Fourth, improve communication regarding complaints by increasing awareness of the complaint process and highlighting the complaint process in board communications, as well as improving agency coordination in complaint response. Fifth, use the most applicable data and analysis in the curtailment process by investigating whether alternative approaches would provide more accurate data, and by using informational orders to better account and include all water rights in the curtailment analysis. Lastly, improve the inspection enforcement process by exploring possible changes to inspection authority and long-term enforceability of informational orders. The third section focused on improving the data quality in the water rights database. The 5 recommendations were: first, improve water demand quality data by continuing to work with stakeholders and develop additional assistance documents for our ERIMS database. Second, improve reporting of demand data by modifying reporting forms to require diversion reporting by point of diversion, with separate reporting for direct diversions and diversions to storage, and reporting of water diverted under contract or transfer. Third, increase demand reporting frequency for statements and also during times of emergency. Fourth, automate initial assessments of water demand in ERIMS. And lastly, make measuring device requirements consistent for diversion reporting and define exception criteria. Finally, division looked at opportunities to expand and improve data and database capabilities by working with UC Davis to develop a model to assist with curtailment decisions, and we will be working on a plan to evaluate the current stream gauging network and identify priority needs for new gauges. If the board does not have any questions, this concludes our presentation.
Questions?
I had one comment before I left, and the staff has responded with that they can do this. I read the dry year report, and my first impression was, this is a great report, but it doesn't, it looks like, you know, this piece of our operation doesn't really know what other pieces are doing. Now, Michael mentioned that that there are a number of things going on, and we all know there are a number of things going on. But if you were just picking up this report, you might not know that. And so he's prepared a footnote that goes is somewhat extensive. It's 5 lines, 4.5 lines, but it goes into acknowledging that there are other things happening without messing up the text of the report, which is and the focus of the report. And I'll just read the footnote, which I think is actually quite good. It says, the footnote would follow, it would be in the second paragraph of the introduction, and it would be after the governor's April 25, 2014 executive order, footnote 1. There's only one footnote. And the information, the words are, the April 25, 2014 executive order affirmed that the provisions of Governor Brown's January 17, 2014 proclamation remained in full force, and also added several new provisions related to water conservation, water transfers, fishery protection, water recycling, groundwater overdraft protection, water supply shortages, and fire response. period. Additionally, the proclamation suspended California Environmental Quality Act requirements for certain activities, including adoption of emergency regulations under Water Code Section 1058.5. I thought that, at least from an informational perspective, if someone's coming to this cold, or if you're a reporter and you're trying to remember all the different things that are going on, this might be a nice reminder that things are happening. Another issue that was brought to my attention is that there is some confusion, apparently, in the media and other places on the allocations that people are getting in a dry year, like 5% or 20% or some small percentage, and what they actually get. People, the media has confused at times the 5% is that's what they actually get. No, that's what they are guaranteed. They're going to get at least 5% or at least 10%, but they may get 30%. They may get 40%. And so there should be somewhere easily accessible a way for people who are interested, the public or the media, who are interested in information as to what is actually being delivered, in addition to what is guaranteed. And so I don't know how that fits with this, but it seems to me that that's something that we should think about, because I do think it is confusing when you read there's a 5% allocation.
Well, also
everywhere.
People also don't realize that people have a mix of water rights.
That's true
contract,
too. That's true too.
groundwater.
And that might be something to think about. Anyway, I just think as we're moving toward trying to make all of this more accessible to the public and to the media and to legislators and to ourselves, it would be good to think how we display this information such that it sends the right message.
Board Member Spivey-Weber, you'll have both the department and the Bureau here tomorrow for the temporary urgency change petition discussion, and perhaps that would be something you might pose to them as to ways, since they're the ones who are making the allocation under their contracts. As Chair Marcus said, there's often people resorting to other water rights as well, so the ultimate amount of water any individual diverter gets would be only known perhaps to that diverter based on the conglomeration of rights. But if your particular interest is in the project deliveries, perhaps that's an appropriate question for the projects tomorrow. I
agree, and I plan to bring it up again tomorrow as well. But I just, as we're talking about dry year and improvements that can be made to gather better data and do a better job of communicating, that's one thing that I think.
Yeah, I think it's worth thinking about where we can sort of tell the water story in very general layperson's terms. So I would take that as it's a piece of the dry report, but it's actually just something we probably ought to do, because so much of what we do on the water rights side is seen as kind of a mysterious, exotic arena that only, a few people understand. So that actually just might be good. It might be good to do that with our colleagues at CWR.
Well, I hesitate to bring this up because I think that you all have a lot on your plate. And so in order to give the big picture, it almost needs to be a very complete dry year report that would have information. Last year, 0 meant 0. It really did. 5 meant 5. But those allocations that come out are initial allocations. And in most years, they change, depending on the hydrology.
But in some cases, 5 didn't mean 5. That's the reason well, in terms of deliveries.
It may not have meant 5 because of, some other source of water which, as Ms. Evoy indicated, most of these districts have multiple sources of water, including the ability to purchase water on the transfer market. And then there are some that truly are dependent entirely upon state or federal supplies, and zero meant zero. So as far as their contract delivery. But I agree, and I mean, in most years, it's an initial allocation that comes out, I think it's in February, and then there's adjustments that are made, through the year. But what I was going to focus, first of all, I appreciate that footnote. That's very helpful. I hesitate to make a lot of suggestions on changing this because I think it's a working document that is going to help basically telegraph to others where staff is going to be headed on some of its recommendations. And also it's an opportunity for us to help message on some of the things that we've already done. But I do think that at least maybe focusing on the title, because even the well, no, it's just that it's misleading.
Yeah.
It makes you think, oh, I'm going to get all the information about what happened last year, and then even the PowerPoint focuses on, it's dry year, but it's really on curtailment. It's on
implementing the water rights system,
data collection, and that sort of thing. So some way to, and at first I thought that there would be multiple reports. But again, that would be very involved for everyone to go back and do a report, say, on the TUCP process when we're going to have a very robust workshop tomorrow, more than likely. So to force staff to prepare a report wouldn't be a wise use of staff resources. So at least to change the title or maybe have a subtitle so that it's a little bit more reflective about what's in the document.
We'd be happy to do so.
That's a good idea.
We were actually looking for a good acronym, and this is the one we came up with, DIAPER, as the acronym because of Michael's impending baby. So we didn't have any other nominations at the time, but we'd be happy to change that.
Good. Any questions? I want to hear from the public. We have a number of comment cards, so let's move to that. First, we have Tim Stroshane from Restore the Delta, followed by Dante John Nomalini from the Central Delta Water Authority. 5 minutes is fine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Tim Stroshane. I'm a policy analyst with Restore the Delta. In 2011 and 2012, I researched water rights compared with unimpaired flows estimates for the Sacramento and San Joaquin River basins for the California Water Impact Network, which we presented in the board's Phase 2 comments and workshop event at that time. I became a user of the State Water Board's eRIMS database and found it very helpful at the time. I supplemented data obtained there with data obtained from water users with pre-14 rights in those basins. And I also used the board's database of statements and diversion and use in compiling that research. I've looked over your dry year program report and respectfully offer the board a few observations based on my research experience. First, CWIN's water availability analysis in 2012 showed that about half of the claimed water rights we found in the San Joaquin River Basin were riparian and or pre-14 out of about 32 million total claims. In other words, including the post-14 claims as well. The river's average unimpaired flow we've found at that time is about 6.2 million acre feet. So the ratio of riparian and pre-14 rights to unimpaired flow is about 2.6 acre feet per acre foot, or rather 2.6 acre feet of claims per acre foot of unimpaired flow.
That's in an average.
That basin.
You mean in an average year?
In an average year, that's correct.
Because the average year doesn't happen every year.
But
Sometimes
it's a
really
metric.
wet. Again, it's a metric that people use, and it's
Yeah.
useful for thinking about, but it doesn't mean what people say that.
I'm coming to that.
Okay, thank you.
Second, on the Sacramento and Trinity River basins, I performed some similar estimates, And there were about 48 million acre-feet of riparian and pre-14 claims out of 120 million acre-feet of total claims in those two basins. And the lion's share of those claims are in the Sacramento River Basin. The riparian and pre-14 claims came to about 40% of the total claims. The combined unimpaired flows of these two basins, again the lion's share being in the Sacramento River Basin, was about 22 million acre-feet. This means that there are about 2.2 acre-feet of riparian and pre-14 claims per acre-foot of unimpaired flow, again, in an average year. The ratio of claims, but this is where you can start to think about the meaning of it when you have dry years or drought years. The ratio of claims to unimpaired flow, of course, rises during droughts. If unimpaired flows fall by 50%, this ratio doubles. Each of those ratios would double. And it describes how a lot of water rights claims chase even less water during droughts. We're aware that you, the board, want better data on water demand so that you can better manage scarce water supplies during drought. While modeling and better measurement, which is referred to in the report and is an important component, I think, of what the Division of Water Rights has prepared for you, we think that there is still a fundamental problem that you face. Modeling and measurement may create greater precision in your data on water use, but it may not help with accuracy of the data. Water users use water in reliance on the faith they place in their entitlements. And the board has a system of water rights before it, of which the board can directly regulate only 50 to 60%. We at Restore the Delta think the board will need to address this underlying issue, and we hope you do so sooner rather than later. Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. Look forward to following up with you in more detail.
Dante John Nomalini with the Central Delta Water Agency. The specific issue I want to address is the order requiring additional information for your database. We received a notification for the Delta and other areas in the state that we should provide this information by March 5th. It's very difficult for us to do that. We're going to make every effort to comply in good faith. We actually started working to gather the patent dates and the information to make a reasonable claim for an initial date of pre-1914. We started in September.
Right, when we talked about it.
And we've been working on it. I took your admonition to heart, and we've been working hard at that. We're not yet in a position. We've got the database. We've got an index for Central and South Delta water agencies.